our party is getting ready for some more action in Cael Morrow, and we're going to talk about how we prep. So let's dig in. Welcome back, everybody. So our party has just finishing up a long rest and has spent a little bit of time last session in Cael Morrow. We talked about that in our last video, so go check that out if you're interested. So to start our session prep, we're going to talk about our characters. We've got Chosen, our Bugbear Barbarian. We've got Dimitri, our Gnome Fighter. We have Iris, our Halfling Warlock. We have Jimmy, our Sea Elf Druid, and Trixie, our Human Artificer / Wizard. Strong start. So as I said, they have just set up the bubble. Trixie has the tiny hut. As they lay down to rest, Iris is going to have a hard time sleeping. Your dreams are filled with visions of a city by the sea, one you don't recognize, but oddly feels familiar. Visions of sailors, tradesmen, nobles, and commons folk. You're certain you haven't been there in this life, perhaps in another. This is just kind of a vision or memory from her previous life, where she was serving a different patron, not the Alexian Aboleth like she is this time. And we're doing that. We're transitioning because it sucks to be a warlock with no powers, and they may have to kill her patron. Everyone's going to wake up the next morning, they'll get a long rest, and then I'm going to have Trixie and Iris both make wisdom saves since they have some effects from the Aboleth. Trixie will finally lose her point of exhaustion. I think she's had it for 2 sessions now, so I think she'll be excited to get that gone. The reason she has it is, if you remember, during our fights during the Bowl of Judgment, Sheed, who is the proprietor there, handed them each a potion in between their fights and said, hey, you can take this, it'll restore all your spell slots, basically like a long rest, but the next day you're going to have 1 point of exhaustion, basically. She took that and has been suffering the effects. And then as soon as that's all done, they're kind of waking up, we will have them roll a d20 for an outreach from the Aboleth again. Scenes. What I'm expecting my party to do is probably hang out a little bit longer in Cael Morrow. My guess is they may go check out the area above the villa where they can go get into the Temple of the Archheart. They're going to try and get there a little bit more, I would expect, but after that, my guess is they're going to head back up and talk to the Cobalt Soul, where they can then level up to level 9. So we've kind of got these in not a perfect order, but it's hard to know exactly what they're going to do. At this point, it's pretty sandboxy. They can go and do whatever they want. Once they get back up, we'll have them reach level 9, and they'll go talk to Jamil, I hope, where he can say thanks. We appreciate it. We'll let you know what the next steps are. Between mission 4 and mission 5, they're going to have about 7 days. I'm sticking with the book on this one so that they can have some downtime and spend some time in Ankh-Rel if they want. They bought a bunch of things before they headed down into Cael Morrow, so I'll give them some opportunity to spend some more gold if they have any, as well as the tournament fights. My guess is we're going to do that. They'll face the Crimson Company, which is what we've decided to call the rivals. I'll have them fight them, and I assume Trixie will be working on the prosthetic arm for Irvin, and we will have that fight. And then for a break, I'm going to have the other group, which we're calling the Discordant Ensemble, we'll have to postpone or extend that by another 7-ish days. So my hope is we'll have break, tournament fight with the rivals, Cobalt Soul mission number 5, and then we can have the finale for the tournament. Just kind of break things up a little bit so that it's not just constant tournament battles the entire session. Once all that had happened, I've gone ahead and for the tournament fights, I have updated my plans according to the level up, because when we originally did this, the rivals were tier 2 and now they're tier 3. So I've got different steps that I want them to do in each round. I've got 3 rounds, and then after that we can kind of wing it. That's just because it's 5 different NPCs that I've got to figure out what they're doing. It's easier for me to have it on hand beforehand, and obviously I can tweak this depending on what my players do, but that's kind of the plan here. And then the finals in the round, I've got a bunch of different NPCs that we created, and some of my players played these when they were doing the one-on-one tournaments and whatnot. So that's the plan with that. Once they are done with that, they have spent some time in Ankh-Rel. We'll have Jamil reach out again and have them issue them the Cobalt Soul mission number 5. He's going to talk to them, I guess, a little bit more about the Alexian Aboleth. It's claiming to be the Apotheon. There's been some things between the Allegiance and the Consortium have escalated in the last 7 days. Things are getting kind of bad. We really need to close this rift, kind of a deal. Just make sure that we really emphasize that. At this point, I kind of want a rift between the rivals and my party to start taking place. The rivals are going to be with the Allegiance, who at this point thinks that the Ruridium and whatever they can find in the rift in Cael Morrow can be used to help stop their enemies, the Consortium specifically. The Allegiance wants to use the Ruridium. Cobalt Soul wants to just close off the rift and call it good so that more corruption doesn't spread. So he's going to talk about all of that, and then he's going to have them go talk to the Aboleth and get into the rift to see if we can get more information and figure out how to close it. So number 1, go talk to the Aboleth if you can. If you can't convince it to let you go in, you're going to have to kill it, basically. Come back, I'll give you 1,000 gold for doing it. I doubt we'll finish all of this up, but just in case, I've got it all prepped. And I've also got prepped the first area in the Netherdeep, just in case they get through. We have the pressure there, and then there's a couple of baddies that they can fight. So I've got that all prepped and ready to go. Secrets and clues. Visions at the Temple of the Archheart. I have retraced my steps on this. Originally, I was going to have a vision from everybody just saying, hey, here's how you're all tied into this. I think I don't want to do that anymore. Had I done it from the beginning, I think I would have done it here as well. But we're just going to have the vision from Elixian and have the Jewel awaken and everybody get their gifts from Cael on the Archheart. So I've got this here just in case I change my mind. Rivals off screen. So the rivals have basically been up to the next mission number 5, I think we are at this point in the Allegiance. So they're going to go scout out the rift. They have been given some ruidium items from the Allegiance of Allsight. The Allegiance is full on testing these things and experimenting with them now. So my party is super curious about ruidium corruption. So I've got a section down here about what it can do. It starts as a red rash, grows into crimson veins, and they haven't seen anything worse yet. In the book, there's a pretty good detailed description about what can happen. We can also have them talk about the disagreements between the 2 headmasters of the Allegiance. One is super wanting to make sure everything's tested, and the other kind of hesitant. And then we talked about this already, but there's tensions between the Allegiance of Allsight and Consortium have grown in the past 7 days. The rift is guarded by an aboleth. We talked about that. The Apotheon is said to have died in Cael Morrow at the end of the calamity. Perhaps the aboleth is indeed some bizarre manifestation of this fallen hero. One thing that I've been working on in between sessions pretty hard is Iris's previous patron is Tussig, who is a voiceless one. It's basically a dragon turtle that lives in the Emerald Gulch Sea near Jorhas. This is just something I created because, as I mentioned earlier, she may end up losing her patron, and she's Luxemborn, so thinking that maybe in one of her previous lives she had this patron so that she doesn't lose her power completely. And if they do end up fighting the Elixian Aboleth, I will have the 2 of them playing tug of war with Iris during the battle. So she may lose her powers for 1 turn, or may have to choose one patron or the other during the fight. NPCs, probably not a ton of them this time. We'll have the rival party potentially, Insight potentially as they leave, Jamil, who is the head of the Cobalt Soul, and then Sheed, who's the head of the Fighting Pits, and Tussig, who is Iris's patron. Stat blocks, we've got the Elixian Aboleth, Aboleth Spawn, Death's Embrace, Corrupted Giant Shark, Giant Octopus, Scuttling Serpent Maw, Swarm of Sorrowfish, Sword Wraith Commander, and Sword Wraith Warrior. These are all the monsters that they can face in Cael Morrow. Treasure, we've got a bunch of different things that we haven't handed out yet. We've talked about these in previous videos. Here they all are. One thing worth mentioning is these rings that we'll be handing out when they get through the Temple of the Archheart. And that is pretty much it. I'm pretty excited to see where this goes and see how my party fares from here on out. Thank you guys a ton for watching. I do appreciate it. Huge shout out to my patrons as always. You guys are the best. We'll catch you in the next one.